Hi everyone, welcome to seniorgolfsource.com. In today's video, I'm going to talk about some key features that senior golfers should look for when they're purchasing new clubs. Now, before we get into this content, please like and subscribe, comment below if there's anything that maybe you think I missed and you'd love to hear more about. So what I'm going to do is start with shaft. Okay, the shaft itself, you can find a variation of different types of materials. In most cases, if you go to say like a Dick's Sporting Goods and you look at a nice set of clubs on the rack, there's a good chance that you're either going to see graphite or you're going to see steel. Okay, steel is going to be the obvious. It's going to have that chromed finish. It's going to have the sound of metal, the feel of metal, and the heaviness of the metal. Now, the graphite shafts typically are going to have different designs on them. They can be bright colors, they can be dark colors, but more importantly, they're going to be lighter in design. Now, just to kind of speak in a frame of reference for a standard, say, dynamic gold S300 shaft, it's a heavy shaft. It's over 100 grams in weight. And it's designed for those swings that can reach 90 miles an hour. And in our case, we're talking about seniors that maybe don't have that type of club head speed. So the beauty in shaft design is the shafts are going to be made and composed of what's called tensile fiber, that graphite, and it's going to be notably lighter. Not only can it be notably lighter, but they can really move around the kick point of the shaft. They can change the flex of the shaft. So if we're looking at a steel shaft compared to a graphite shaft, the steel, think of it as it was at one point, it was one flat sheet of metal. They rolled it, they seamed it. There is very little torque, there's very little twist. So there's very little forgiveness with that. So we know one thing, we know it's heavy. We know that chances of it being flexible are low. And we also now know that it doesn't have what's called torque, not very much of it. Now on the other side, we're looking at graphite shafts. First off, you're going to notice they are lighter. Second off, there's a good chance that you're going to see that they are a lot more flexible. But the big forgiveness factor that a lot of people don't understand is the torque. So because it wasn't one flat sheet of metal and then rolled and seamed, it's tensile fiber kind of fused together, and a couple different companies do it in different ways, but it's going to have a lot more give. It's going to have a lot more twist. So what that means, if you were to hit shots more towards the toe, shots towards the heel, low or high, the shaft is going to flex and help stabilize that club face. And one, it's not going to hurt your hands nearly as much. And secondly, stabilization of the club face means more consistent shots. So shaft is going to be one of the primary things I would look at. There's a couple companies out there that really offer kind of like a step up. If you were to go to like a Club Champion, although they do charge for their time in letting you understand and try and demo different shafts, it's totally worth it. There are other companies, Mizuno being one of them. They have what's called the Shaft Optimizer. It's a little device that goes on their fitting cart shaft, and you swing it with different heads, different swing weights, and it calculates based on a couple different parts of your swings, like timing, tempo, and the ratio of your actual overall golf swing. It'll help recommend a shaft that is very suitable for your style of swing. So just know that there are resources out there that can help you establish the right type of material, whether you're going from steel to graphite, the right kick point in the shaft, the right flex in the shaft, and the right gram weight. There's a lot to it. And you should definitely take advantage of this, because a lot of people don't. They just go buy whatever they see and they're like, oh, I swing regular flex. that makes sense. Well, it may not be the right gram weight for you. It might not have the right amount of torque, and it might not have the right kick point. So there's a lot of variables that you're just assuming are there, and you expect your game to get better. Do yourself a favor and get your shaft fitted. Now, outside of the actual shaft, the length of the club does make a big difference. You know, we're talking about centeredness of contact. So on pinggolf.com, you can do what's called a web fitting. And basically, it will take a measurement from your arms or knuckles and your total length, and it will give you an assessment of how long your shaft should be for your clubs, which is it's a good starting point, but I do recommend that you go to someone certified because there are certain variables that can be changed. For example, most drivers right off the shelf are way too long for the majority of the golfers out there. The companies know that the longer I make the shaft, the greater velocity and potential they have to create speed, but they're not factoring in control. You know, how far can you hit it in the woods is the question that I ask people that play the extra long drivers. Some people can make it work, so I'm not sitting here bashing you guys, but for most of us, the longer shafted drivers are not going to be the most conducive metric to be able to get me to find the center of the fairway, because I'm going to hit the ball all over the club face. So establishing a good length is a good way to go for all the clubs. It's from your irons all the way up to the driver. Make sure you get the right length. All right, so now when we actually get into club head design, I've talked about it on a couple of my videos where senior golfers are going to benefit more and get more launch from maybe a combo set that progressively goes from like the sand wedge 9, 8, 7, 6, and once it gets to the 5, it turns into a hybrid, and so on until the 3. Elongating the front of the club to the back of the club is only going to lower the center of gravity. It's going to help the ball launch up in the air. So playing hybrids are great for those long clubs. As far as club head design goes, there's companies like Ping, TaylorMade is another good one, where they reinforce the toes of the club with tungsten metals or other alloy metals that help reinforce stability. That way, if you were to hit your shot, you have a little bit more beef behind the ball to help get the ball up in the air and you know, launch it nice and high and straight. So now we're going to talk about the driver. In today's market, the options are limitless. Your drivers can range anywhere from, you know, the $300 range to sky's the limit. Like the Zexio 14 is, I think it's $700. So you can really spend a small fortune or a very large chunk of change on a driver, and I want to make sure you're not just buying it because it's the latest and greatest. I want you to buy it because it's what's good for you. So for those of you golfers out there that maybe don't get out as much, maybe you're a big slicer of the ball and you don't like practice. It's just plain and simple. Maybe your back or your shoulders don't merit the time on the range or going to take lessons. That's going to be an effective long-term solution. Well, fortunately, golf club manufacturers have designed clubs where they have movable weights, they have movable hosels, where you can alter the angle of the club face to help yield more consistent results. So for example, if you were struggling with hitting a slice, you could maybe look at some of the TaylorMade drivers, or maybe even the Callaway drivers that have the sliding weight in the channel of the back of the club. Well, what would happen if I moved the weight, so I'm just using this for demonstration, if the weight were on the back of the club and it were centered and I were slicing the ball, it would be advantageous of me to grab that adjustment tool, move the weight more towards the heel of the club, which is going to lighten up this side of the club, and it's going to make it easier to square up the club face or close the club face to help offset that slice that you've been fighting. And then vice versa, if it were the opposite, if I'm hooking it a ton, there's a good chance that I'm going to throw the weight way out toward the toe to help neutralize that club face at address. Now, there are a couple other factors that you can talk about when it comes to the design of the driver. Some drivers are more elongated from the front edge of the club to the back. And just take this simple statement and run with it. The longer the distance from the front of the club to the back of the club, the further back I'm getting that MOI, the lower the center of the gravity is becoming, and it's going to create greater potential to launch the ball in the air. So a really good driver, and a great example of that, is going to be the Cleveland driver that just came out this year. It's very elongated. To some of us, it might not be an appealing look, but if it's getting the job done and you're hitting fairways and you're launching the ball high like you need to, who cares what it looks like? You know, I would play the most ridiculous looking driver if I knew that it was getting me the results that I needed. It's not all about looking like a pro. It's about enjoyment on the course. And if you can't find that enjoyment off the tee and you're struggling the rest of the round and scrambling to try to make up for what errors you're making on the tee, you know, it's time to look out and see what is on the market. And definitely do it with somebody that is educated in it. Make sure that you're not just going online and just typing in Google and seeing what got the highest reviews, because that could have been a bunch of high reviews from very top level golfers. You just don't know. It could just be the sales team went in and typed it in. Not saying that happens, but you should do some due diligence for yourself. You should make sure that you're playing the right equipment from head to toe. So I hope you found this as an eye-opener, and I'd love to hear your comments below, maybe some success stories. Maybe you found yourself in that position where you thought, if I play the Titleist driver, or I play this X driver, I'm going to look great. My friends are going to, you know, say, oh man, he's playing this awesome driver. But when it comes to performance, if you're not doing anything with it, it's null and void. So thanks again for stopping by. I hope you found this helpful, and I hope to hear from you soon. Thank you.